Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English podcast.
Okay, let's dive into something that, honestly, it hit me like a ton of bricks a few months back.
Oh, what was that?
Well, I was spending all this time, energy, trying to learn English. I thought I was doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could follow along in movies, mostly get the gist of conversations. But then came this, genuinely scary realization.
Scary.
Yeah, I realized I was learning English,
Hmm.
but I couldn't actually use the words I was learning.
The classic knowing versus doing gap. Very common.
Exactly. They were
Yeah.
just stuck somewhere in the back of my head,
Yeah.
not coming out when I spoke or wrote. It was awful.
That disconnect is a really significant sticking point for language learners. You build up passive knowledge, sure,
Right?
but making that leap to actually using it, that needs something different, a different kind of engagement.
Totally. And it was so frustrating because, I felt like I was putting in the work, but nothing was changing in my actual ability to communicate
Mm-hmm. Felt like spinning your wheels.
completely.
Mm.
But then something shifted. I made one tiny change, and honestly, it felt huge, the impact, even though the change itself was simple.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Well, 30 days later, it wasn't just that I was understanding more. I was actually thinking, writing, speaking with, 500 new words I could use.
Wow, 500 words integrated in 30 days. That's significant.
It felt massive, a completely different ballgame.
That really shows how a targeted strategy can make a difference, doesn't it? It suggests you found a much more effective way to make vocabulary stick and be, well, usable.
So that's exactly what we're getting into today.
Mm.
No magic wands, no secret hacks here.
Just practical stuff.
Just a very specific, totally replicable method that I kind of stumbled upon. I want to walk you through exactly what I did.
The nitty-gritty.
Yep, the little tweaks that made the big difference, and crucially, how you listening can take this and really boost your own English vocabulary.
Excellent. Let's start with that feeling of being stuck. You mentioned it was scary, frustrating. Can you maybe paint a clearer picture of that day-to-day?
Oh yeah, it really felt like I was just constantly hitting a wall. Like I said, movies with subtitles, fine, mostly.
Passive understanding.
Right. And, if you give me a grammar quiz, I probably wouldn't completely bomb it. But the second I needed to actually speak, or even just write a simple email,
That's when it fell apart.
it felt like this huge limitation clamped down. Like my brain had this, I don't know, library full of words, but only about 5 were actually checked out and ready to go.
So recognition was there, but the act of retrieval, pulling the words out when you needed them, that was the problem.
Exactly. Production lagged way behind.
And I imagine that hit your confidence pretty hard.
Oh, massively. I found myself falling back on the same super basic, frankly boring words all the time.
Uh-huh.
Good, bad, nice thing. Everything was just good or not good.
The classics. Very limiting.
So limiting.
Yep.
And honestly, it made me feel a bit dim,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying so hard putting in this effort, but I still sound like I have the vocabulary of a 5-year-old.
Well, relying on that small core vocabulary is a classic sign, isn't it? It shows that passive learning is way ahead of active application. And yeah, it definitely undermines your confidence when you feel you can't express what you actually understand.
For sure. And the thought definitely started to creep in, maybe I'm just bad at languages.
That negative self-talk, easy to fall into that trap.
Totally. When you feel like you're working hard but getting nowhere.
Yeah.
But then I had this moment of clarity. It was really crucial.
What was it?
I realized the problem wasn't me. It wasn't some, inherent lack of language talent. It was the method. The way I was trying to learn and remember words just wasn't working at all.
That is such an important realization. So often, the issue isn't the learner, it's the strategy. A mismatch between the technique and how our brains actually hold on to information.
Exactly.
So looking back, what was wrong with that old approach? What weren't you doing right with vocabulary?
Well, I was doing what I thought you were supposed to do, right? Making these massive lists.
The list.
Huge lists. I try to cram 50, sometimes even 100 new words a day. And in the moment, it felt super productive, filling my brain.
That volume sounds, well, overwhelming. Maybe not great for deep learning.
It was overwhelming. And the really frustrating part, I'd feel good for about an hour, then probably 90% of those words gone, vanished within a day or two. Poof.
Oh, that's rough. All that effort for almost nothing.
It was so disheartening, like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. So I just decided, okay, stop. Complete change of tack.
Smart move.
I ditched the massive isolated lists And instead, I made this really conscious shift to learning words in context.
Yes. Contextual learning, that's so often cited as the more effective way. Rote memorization of isolated words. It just doesn't give your brain the hooks it needs, the connections to meaning and use.
Precisely. The new plan was all about using the words actively, almost straight away, not just drilling definitions.
Makes sense.
So for 30 days, I set up this really simple, really manageable daily routine.
Okay, break it down for us.
Every single day, choose just 5 new words, only 5, not some crazy number.
Manageable. I like it.
Then, for each of those 5, write one original sentence. And the key part here, making sure that sentence had real, meaningful context for me.
Right, not just copying a dictionary example. You were creating your own connection, personalizing it.
Had to be personal. That personal link was like non-negotiable. It makes them stickier, you know?
Absolutely. That personal investment is huge for memory.
Then, and this was another really important bit, I deliberately tried to weave those 5 words into my speaking practice during the day.
Actively using them.
Even if it felt awkward, and believe me, it did at first. And finally, every single night, right before bed, I'd read those 5 sentences out loud.
Saying them aloud, not just reading silently.
Right, actually saying them. Not just glancing, not just thinking, vocalizing them.
That engages more senses, more brain pathways, auditory, motor. It strengthens the memory trace. Much more active than just reading.
It really felt like it was anchoring the words somehow. And the other crucial part of this whole thing, how I picked those 5 words each day.
Yes, the selection process.
I realized my old method, the sort of scattergun approach,
Yeah.
just picking random words off a list, totally useless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was learning words like, I don't know, toaster or octopus. When do I ever talk about octopuses?
Right. That lack of relevance is a killer for recall. If your brain doesn't see the immediate need, it thinks, probably don't need to remember this.
Exactly. So, huge shift there too. I started picking words directly related to my life, what was actually happening.
Strategic selection.
Yeah, kind of mentally bucketed things, work stuff, maybe travel plans, just general daily chat. So for instance, if I knew my day was full of like meeting deadlines,
Okay.
right, I'd actively look for and learn words related to that, like urgent, priority, schedule, maybe postpone.
That's incredibly efficient. You're focusing on vocabulary you're very likely to need and use almost immediately. That creates instant opportunities for reinforcement.
Precisely. Relevance became my filter. The words had a direct job to do in my day.
Makes perfect sense.
Now, actually, using these new words in real time.
Yeah.
That was, well, let's just say it wasn't always smooth sailing at the start.
I can imagine. It's always a bit awkward forcing new words into conversation initially, isn't it? It takes time for them to feel natural.
Oh, definitely awkward.
Oh.
That probably sounded pretty stilted. My sentences were likely grammatically clunky half the time. And there were definitely those moments, where the word is right there on the tip of your tongue,
Agonizing.
but you just can't quite grab it.
Yeah.
It was frustrating, but a different kind of frustration. More like performance anxiety, maybe.
But you pushed through that awkwardness. What kept you going when it felt weird?
I just kind of forced myself, honestly. I made a pact with myself. Even if I sound a bit silly, I'm going to try. I'm going to slot these words in.
Good for you.
Even just talking to myself making coffee. I started texting friends in English more, deliberately swapping out my usual basic words for the new ones.
Creating low-stakes practice opportunities. Smart.
And I even started keeping a super short, really informal diary in English. Just another place to try them out.
That's brilliant. Those kinds of low-pressure environments let you experiment, make mistakes without feeling judged, and build that confidence muscle.
And you know what? After maybe 2 weeks of doing this every single day, consistently,
Yeah.
something cool happened.
What was that?
I didn't have to consciously try so hard to use the words anymore. They just started,
Yeah.
popping up. More naturally.
Uh-huh.
In my thoughts, in my speech. It was like my brain finally went, okay, I get it, these are useful, and started integrating them properly.
That feeling when new vocabulary becomes more automatic, less effortful, that's a huge sign of progress. It means those words are genuinely shifting from passive knowledge to your active toolkit.
Totally. And so after the full 30 days, the results were really noticeable, genuinely.
How so?
I just felt more fluent overall. I sounded more natural, less hesitant. I was catching more nuances in podcasts and movies too, not just the main idea, but the richer language.
Better comprehension as well.
Yeah, and my writing. I could actually write paragraphs that felt more detailed, more expressive than before.
Sounds like a really substantial improvement across the board.
Look, it wasn't like a magic bullet, right? I didn't suddenly transform into a perfect native speaker overnight.
Of course not. Setting realistic expectations is important.
But the difference, it was night and day. I'd gone from relying on good and bad for everything to naturally using a much wider range. Words like, spectacular or mediocre or challenging, rewarding. Things that actually describe stuff better.
More nuanced, expressive language.
Exactly. And the really amazing part, the big breakthrough for me, I started catching myself actually thinking in English sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Not translating in my head from my native language, just the thoughts were happening in English.
That is often seen as a major milestone in language learning, isn't it? Thinking in the target language. It signifies such a deeper level of immersion and processing. The language is becoming part of your cognitive wiring.
It felt huge. So if you're listening and you feel that same frustration I had, you know lots of words, but you struggle to actually use them. I honestly believe this simple system can make a real difference for you too.
It sounds very promising because it addresses the core issues so directly.
And it's surprisingly straightforward when you actually break it down.
Often the simplest methods applied consistently are the most powerful, right? So for everyone listening who's keen to try this, let's just quickly recap those core steps.
Okay, yeah, so the absolute core. First, pick just 5 real-life words daily. Words relevant to your day, what you think you'll need to talk or write about.
Relevance first. Got it.
Second, for each word, write 1 original sentence. Make it personal, make it meaningful to you.
Your own context.
Crucial. Third, make it a daily habit, non-negotiable. Say those 5 sentences out loud, every day.
Vocalize them. Engage more senses.
And finally, number 4, throughout your day, actively look for chances to use those new words in conversation, in writing, even just thinking them.
Active application. That
Yeah.
seems to be the secret sauce here.
Totally.
Yeah.
You mentioned that difference between passively knowing a word and actively owning it. That's everything.
Could you maybe elaborate just a bit more on why that active use is so vital for making vocabulary stick long term?
Yeah, sure. It's like, okay, imagine reading a book about swimming versus actually jumping in the pool.
Right. Theory versus practice.
Exactly. You can absorb all the theory, know all the strokes in your head. But until you get in the water, feel the water, try to move. It's not a real skill. It's just information. Vocabulary is the same. You can see a word, learn its definition. But until you actively pull it out, use it in a sentence that means something to you, actually say it, try to fit it into a conversation, it just stays as this abstract bit of data.
Something your brain doesn't prioritize because it hasn't seen it in action.
Exactly. Your brain's efficient, right? It focuses on what you use. That active use signals, this is important, keep this handy.
It really highlights that our brains are wired to remember what's relevant and actively engaged with. Passive knowledge just doesn't get the same VIP treatment. It often fades without that reinforcement.
That's what was happening with my huge lists. My brain was like, why bother remembering aardvark? You never use it. No practical value.
Ah, poor aardvark.
But focusing on just 5 relevant words a day and actively using them, my brain seemed to go, okay, noted. These are useful. Let's keep these.
And the beauty is, as you said, this doesn't require fancy apps or expensive courses.
Not at all. It just came down to consistency, that focused daily effort. Simple, but powerful.
That's a really encouraging message, I think. Significant progress doesn't always need complexity. It needs strategy and consistency. Active engagement.
Absolutely. It's that whole compound effect, isn't it? Small, consistent actions adding up over time. Way more effective than trying to do these huge, infrequent cramming sessions. And honestly, if I could go from feeling so stuck and limited to actually using hundreds of new words, feeling more confident, just with this simple method in 30 days, then I truly believe anyone listening who feels that frustration can do it too.
It's about taking control, shifting from just receiving information to actively doing something with it.
So really, what are you waiting for? I mean it. Pick your first 5 words today.
Right now.
Think about your day tomorrow. What conversations might you have? What are you writing? Choose words for that. Write your sentences tonight. Say them out loud before you sleep. And then tomorrow, start looking for chances to use them, even if it feels a bit weird at first. Just start.
It's an excellent, actionable challenge.
Let's grow your English. 1 word, 5 words at a time.
Word by word. It emphasizes that power of starting small and building that momentum through consistency. Fantastic.